President Tinubu back in Abuja after a 3-day visit to South Africa.
You are not aware still Senate to engage with Attorney General as tax bills generate debates across the country.
Retired civil servant wins First Lady's Every Home a Garden competition.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss inclusion and sustainable future for people with disabilities.
All right, let's just paint an imaginary picture for you. Imagine an infant, all alone in his own world, in a quiet corner in his classroom, absolutely alienated from his mates. Let's even contemplate Victor, a scenario where an adult, on a wheelchair, confined to a wheelchair, just, find himself on the sidewalk, lost in thoughts, probably because he could not secure, a decent job, no matter how hard he tried. These are all just scenarios that we have painted.
Indeed, you have painted very vivid images, Claire. It is also relatable. Mm-hmm. Now, physically challenged persons are confronted with many issues ranging from unemployment, identity crisis, depression, concerns around self-worth, and often feel ostracized from the society.
Mm-hmm. That's just the facts. And the truth is that most of these persons were not born that way. They were not born disabled. But it really doesn't matter or shouldn't matter how and when disability sets in. Now, the society in many instances has not been kind to physically challenged persons.
Well, reports have shown that the life of a person with disability is hard enough without external aggression from society. Stigma and discrimination against them is a very serious issue of concern in Nigeria.
And, some of these persons are confronted with, the tough decisions inhibiting them, access to basic social services and, of course, economic opportunities.
This is really an irony, Claire. In other climes, disability qualifies a person for benefits such as free parking, extra time in exams, VAT exemption, free prescriptions and dental treatment, and that's just to mention a few.
Well, we will get there, and I believe that we're making real progress. But the United Nations has also, over time, promoted the rights and advancements of persons with disabilities. And such efforts, can be seen, like I said, in the World Programme of Action 1982. It's a standard rule 1994, and of course there's also the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2006. There are also other very relevant human rights and development instruments that protect people living with various disabilities.
Yeah, indeed. The National Commission for Persons with Disabilities was established to promote, protect, and prioritize the rights of persons living with disabilities.
So in the since 4 years ago, since that commission was established, there have been significant improvement in the lives of physically challenged persons in Nigeria. But data indicate that more must be done to further enhance the quality of life, their well-being, and that's the reason we will be giving attention to persons with disabilities in today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I thank you for joining us once again. I am Claire Adelabu Abdurrazak.
And I am Victor Azo. Let me also welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria. We are reaching you on the network service of the NTA. Of course, shortly, Dennis Adegunloye, who is standing by, will present the news. And later on, we will have Chukwudi Okoli Obaja, who will be joining us to review the papers. So let's first get the news highlights from Dennis Adegunloye. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Claire. And good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. President Bola Tinubu is back in Nigeria after his working visit to South Africa. The presidential plane landed in Abuja at about 10 minutes past 9 on Wednesday night. He was received by a delegation of senior government officials led by the Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila. In Cape Town, the president, alongside his host presidents, chaired the 11th session of the Nigeria-South Africa Binational Commission. Both leaders also attended the opening session of the two countries' business roundtable. President Tinubu proceeded to South Africa after his state visit to France. The Senate has resolved to engage the Attorney General of the Federation later today to resolve areas of disagreements on the proposed tax reform bills. Deputy President of the Senate, Barau Jibrin, while presiding over Wednesday's plenary, said the decision followed a series of meetings by the Senate in relation to the proposed tax reforms. He also announced the setting up of a committee in that regard to be chaired by the minority leader of the Senate, Abba Moro. The Senate Committee on Finance has been directed to put on hold further legislative action on the bill and awaits the outcome of the meeting with the Attorney General of the Federation. The long-awaited national census was the main focus of interactions between the Senate's Committee on National Identity and Population Commission and the National Population Commission, NPC. This was during the committee's oversight to the NPC headquarters to assess its performance of the 2023-2024 budget.
If we are able to do census with biometric or national register, that means at the end of the exercise, everybody would have been registered and would have his own biometric, so we can quickly do national identity for everybody.
The House of Representatives has condemned recent banditry attacks on farmers in Enugu State and other parts of the country. Adopting a motion of urgent public importance, the House noted that the trend of attacks on farmers not only affects the local population, but poses a greater threat to national food security as farmers are forced to abandon their farmlands. The High Court of the Federal Capital Territory sitting in Abuja has adjourned the trial of the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, to 25th January 2025. The presiding judge, Justice Marianne Anini, gave the order at the resumed trial of Emefiele on the alleged violation of procedure in redesigning of the Naira. The trial of the former governor of the Apex Bank was stalled due to a technical glitch experienced during the appearance of the prosecution witness, who joined via Zoom. A 62-year-old retired civil servant from Borno State, Veronica Kidafa Mbaya, is the winner of the Every Home a Garden competition, promoted by Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu. She was unveiled at a ceremony at the conference center of the presidential villa. Well, that's the news at this time. Thanks for joining us. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll continue after this break with Claire and Victor.
The Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Mohammed Idris, FNIPR, cordially invites Commissioners of Information and Orientation and Strategy, Permanent Secretaries, stakeholders in the information sector, public communication managers, marketing communicators, and the general public to the 48th edition of the National Council on Information and National Orientation, holding in Kaduna City, Kaduna State. The National Council is the highest policy decision body in the sector and is expected to deliberate on the theme, Enhancing Public Information Management for Inclusive Governance, with with the renewed hope agenda in focus and make critical decisions. The council meeting is scheduled as follows. Dates: 11th December 2024, arrival. 12th December 2024, technical sessions. 13th December 2024, council meetings. Venue: Hotel 17, number 6 Tafawa Balewa Way, Lafia Road, Kaduna City, Kaduna State. Time: 9 a.m. daily. Mrs. Comfort Ajiboye, Director, Overseeing Office of the Permanent Secretary. Announcer.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We bet solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we have more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
Win a brand new car. Make a purchase of 10 million naira or more at any Vento Furniture store and stand a chance to drive home a brand new car.
Vento Furniture, addictive quality.
At break time, when my champ needs to keep going, he's going to need his favorite snack, containing calcium, iron, and fiber.
Milo Energy Snacks, snack of future champions. Milo!
Nivea Pearl and Beauty Deodorant. With natural pearl extracts and avocado oils for soft, smooth, and beautiful underarms. The perfect balance of 48-hour protection and care with delicate fragrances. Feel the power of pearls. Nivea Pearl and Beauty for soft, smooth, and beautiful underarms. Try our new Pearl and Beauty Black Pearl for smooth and perfumed underarms.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
They swore an oath to serve our fatherland and defend the people. They traded their freedom, comfortable homes, and mortgaged their lives on the battleground for our unity and peaceful living. These are the great, loyal, and committed Nigerian armed forces who risked their lives courageously to safeguard our borders. But in the line of duty, many never returned. Nigerians, arise, let's celebrate our fallen heroes. Put on the remembrance emblem to support the incapacitated and families of our fallen heroes.
Thank you for your patriotic commitment to Nigerian unity, stability, and progress.
Parastatals, religious and corporate bodies to donate generously to the Emblem Appeal Launch. Send your donations to these accounts. Account name, Emblem Appeal Launch. Account number 393-200-7526. EcoBank Nigeria PLC.
Why do we have to arrange all the goodies into a tower? We should all take what we want, as we want, and when we want.
From pets, it's important to secure the goodies and protect them for everyone. We want to make sure there's enough for everyone, even on a rainy day.
I don't see the point.
Oh no! Our tower! No! From pets!
Oh, sorry.
This is a perfect example of how one poor choice can bring down something so great.
And our one small good action can make a big difference.
Remember, everyone, let's focus on making the right choices and doing small acts of goodness. Together, we can build something even more magnificent for everyone and ensure that it lasts.
Welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. And just a reminder, of course, we're celebrating International Day of People Living with Disabilities, and that's why we're dedicating to this edition of the program to explore the inclusion and, of course, sustainable development. But before that, newspaper review will be coming up in just a moment.
It's time for newspaper review, and Chukwudeko Lubaja is already looking through, flipping through, and trying to familiarize himself.
Let me tell you something. Let me let you into a secret. He's trying to shield something, but today he will not get away with it.
Because Arsenal won?
No, not Arsenal.
That's because I goofed yesterday. No. So it's on your mind now.
No, it's not the goofing.
Anyway, good morning.
Chukwudi is a year older, and he's been trying to hide it. And before I forget, let me say, Chukwudi, happy birthday to you before we delve into the papers.
Oh, really?
And yes.
I am glad to be alive. It's just that when people talk about my birthday, what happens to me is, what have you done for humanity that you should be jubilating?
They say men don't celebrate their birthdays.
But I'm happy to be alive. I don't have time to even remember. It was a lady in my car who told me yesterday, happy birthday in advance. I said, oh, is it tomorrow?
No, in advance.
No problem. No problem. We will get together after studio time.
Okay. You
don't run away.
You'll foot the expenses.
Let's begin with the People's Daily. And the lead story here reads, Benue killings, Senate orders security personnel to curb small arms proliferation. That story is on page 4 and directs construction of mobile barracks in affected area. You can get details on page 4. And just above that story, Nigeria, South Africa take measures to boost trade investment. You can get details of that on page 5. And bridging financial inclusion gaps, key to $1 trillion economic vision. That's according to Vice President Shetima. And details can be found on page 4. And at the bottom of the People's Daily, the front page of the People's Daily, road accident claims 12 in Yobe. That's attributed to FRSC, page 7. And just the final strip at the bottom, tax reform has inimical effect on TET fund tertiary education. That's according to Kwesu, page 8. ACF lifts suspension previously imposed on its NEC chairman and ensure efficient over-the-counter ATM cash disbursements. CBN directs banks. I think we'll have something to say about this later. And pay our pension arrears, ex-servicemen urge FG. You can get details of this one on page 18. And that takes us to the Daily Trust, which leads with a similar story. Senate AGF to review tax reform bills today. Public hearing suspended indefinitely. New committee, an aberration. That story is on page 4. And then just below it, you find a picture story with a caption, remains of a car conveying people to Dansadao town, which ran into an explosive device planted by terrorists along Yartasha village, Maru local government, Zamfara state, yesterday. Quite unfortunate. And then below that, in the black strip, Lakurawa responsible for Zamfara explosion. That's according to police, page 4. And at the bottom, how 4 police officers stole 43 million naira from cargo driver, page 5. FG declares special end-of-year train services for Nigerians, page 3. Ex-Kwara Governor Ahmed misappropriated 5 billion naira UBEC fund. That's attributed to a witness, and it's on page 10. And just before we go below the nameplate here, how tax reform bills put Barau on the spot, page 11. Staff opted for voluntary retirement. That's according to CBN. And finally, 12 burnt to death in Yobe road accident, page 7. Claire.
Okay, let's quickly take a look at the Blueprint newspaper, and it's quite busy this morning. Let's take of course, the cheering news. The picture story there is that of the First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, with winner of the Every Home a Garden competition, Mrs. Veronique Ambaya from Borno State, and wife of the Vice President, Ajia Nana Shatima, during the grand finale of the competition at the State House yesterday. And we all want to say a very big congratulations to her, and of course to all the participants across the 36 states of the Federation. It wasn't easy, I can tell you. And the other one is Kogi State Governor Ahmed Usman Ododo presenting the 2025 appropriation bill of 582,404,119,489 billion naira to the State House of Assembly in Lokoja. And that's the picture story star. Away from that now, tax reform bills. That's another story trending on the front page of the paper. Judiciary to the rescue. Senate holds action, meets presidential delegation. The writer to that story says, reforms urgent to address struggles of Nigerians. Oyedele. There are other stories trending at the foot of the paper. Reps demand 100% budget increase for Tobacco Control Fund. On page 6, CBN clears air on staff early exit exercise, page 21. And of course, other stories just above the nameplate. CP orders investigation of ex-Edo NLC chair's death at checkpoint. Details of that on page 6. And Kwara demote transfers errant teacher for assaulting co-member. And in Zamfara, 10 on board golf car killed in bridge bomb explosion. Gunmen abduct councillor, 8 others in Kogi community. And the last but certainly not the least is $1.045 billion committed to education infrastructure in the FCT, so says Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike.
You practically ended with a figure. I didn't want to go into the jawbreaker that those figures were posing concerning that state budget. You know, we tell news producers, do it in words for us. News reading is not the easiest thing in the world. They not ever agree. You got away with it anyway.
This could have been shortened to 582.4
exactly
billion.
Approximation.
Yes.
Just make sure that you're still within range, and all that. Anyway,
I think they just want to be specific.
Yeah, it's okay, no problem. Specificity is also necessary to pick up some, have a heart for whoever is going to read it. The Senate seems to have, pulled back from, public hearings is next over the tax reform bills. And I say, it is still doing its rounds in democracy. You can see that the outcry from the north is actually picking up more and more intensity. So you begin to say maybe there's something to really look at concerning this matter. So let them sit. Now, what is before the APC government is very, very necessary to be handled properly, in the sense that many of the lawmakers are in the ruling party. But in spite of that, they are saying, look, this thing is not quite the way we want to go about it. So they need to make sure that they do a tidy job that does not reveal their underbelly in terms of party cohesion. The situation actually places a lot of demand, on all the actors, concerning this matter. I think at the end of the day, they're going to resolve it.
Well,
so
it does show that sometimes party cohesion can become priority, and other times it becomes who you represent, the people you represent, and what the interest might be from where you're coming.
Actually, I tell people that the people you represent are your first responsibility in politics and governance. Just the way I say, the news belongs to the people. Instead of saying the minister has said that one of my BBC traders will tell you, Nigerians are likely to experience this, following a statement by, they always take the news to the sufferer of action, sufferer in quotes, or the person who's going to bear the brunt of it. So in that sense as well, the people you represent are your first priority in politics and governance.
Okay, just before
sometimes we change that in our plan.
I'm just surprised at how the time just, we
never ever had enough.
Yes, I know. Anyway, but let's quickly talk about this. Okay. And it's a front page story on Kwara demoting a teacher for assaulting corps member, and I tried to find out what the offense was. But this is just what this paper has, that the Kwara State government has reprimanded a school teacher, Hajia Hamzat Fatima Nike, accused of maltreating a youth corps member, posted to Government Day Junior Secondary School in Ilorin. And the teacher was said to have been found guilty of fighting on duty, use of foul language, insubordination and disrespect for the national identity which the uniform of the corps member represents.
Well, we don't know the details of the story, so we cannot afford to speculate. Let's just treat it as a case of two Nigerians disagreeing on a matter. But when things like this,
as they say,
no, it's not a free for all. What we would always counsel is, when this kind of thing happens, because it's an infringement, society should have been spared the agony of.
My point of raising it is not even because of the fight itself, but because of the reason that the state government is given, disrespect for uniform. And it is a common practice, not just with NYSC corps member, but even men of the armed forces. You find people disrespecting the uniform. The uniform is a national.
They are two different things, really. We don't have time. There are two different things. The person bearing the uniform could attract umbrage against the uniform. It could happen. We don't know the details yet. Okay. Let us say that a disagreement that should not have been made a public thing, to the shame of the environment,
indeed,
should not have happened. So let us go into it and make sure it is settled amicably.
Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to look at this explosion issue, and which the police is attributing to the Lakurawa group, which is taking a different.
They're called Lakurawa.
Lakurawa.
Gentlemen, I'm sure you can see and hear the director telling us, Chukwudi, go and have fun.
Yes.
It's your day today.
Let them stop Lakurawa in their tracks. That's all I want to say.
Well, you have my permission to go break a leg. It's your birthday.
Yes.
It's your birthday, Chukwudi.
I thought you had stopped that.
Chooks the boy.
How are you doing?
Today now your birthday. All right, let's take a break.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
I think Amaka should just move out of the house. Yes.
No. Standing out of the house is not the right thing to do.
Oh, there you go again with your sentimental family stuff.
Baby, if our aim is to stop this affair, it is best achieved under our roof.
You do something terrible and you'll be acting innocent.
What are you going on about?
Don't ask me that question again. You couldn't even control yourself in the presence of our visitors.
What are you accusing me of, woman?
My son, I don't know how serious you are with my daughter, but there's something that needs to be done urgently before you move any further.
Anything, just anything, just say it. I'm ready to do anything.
There is a spell that needs to be removed.
A spell?
Family forever, the story of our lives.
One of the better things about this season, now our better times together.
Oyo, time to go.
The not disturb me time. The dramatic time. The exciting time.
Me wait already sis, but I don't dey wait for that now.
The nothing fit stop my shine time. With GoTV, it's easy to capture better times. Reconnect and watch GoTV with plenty football, new series, films, cartoon, lower price on Super Plus and more entertainment. Now better season for everybody with GoTV. Love it.
For a certain period of time, shouts of joy and faces of defeat punctuate the daily activities of Newi. The reason? The Kingsley Obiuku Foundation Unity Cup 2024.
The vision behind the Unity Cup was simply community development and looking at creative ways in which we can reduce the current high crime rates in Newi South.
This year's tournament brings together the towns of Amici, Azibu, Ekulumiri, Osumeyi, Ukpo, Akuihedi, Ebenato, Esinifite, Unubi, and Otu.
I feel happy, I feel excited.
The foundation's efforts remind us that with vision and dedication, local initiatives can create lasting positive change across Africa and beyond. Join us. Let us move forward together.
All right, thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Now, as a prompt to our conversation on creating a sustainable future for persons with disabilities, let's take this background report by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
The United Nations has long championed the rights of persons with disability.
This is evident in the declaration of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities in 1992 to increase awareness on the challenges faced by individuals. It also seeks to promote their well-being. The adoption of the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2006 further strengthened global commitments to disability rights, aligning them with the broader goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Globally, several efforts have been made to promote the rights and inclusion of vulnerable members of the society. However, persons with disabilities in Nigeria are constantly faced with several barriers to their full participation in social, economic, political and environmental cycles. These challenges, which are associated with societal prejudice, misconceptions, limited resources, inability to access necessary facilities or resources, educational discrimination and limitations. Other challenges include employment discrimination and policy gaps, which can present significant obstacles to the abilities to acquire and execute skills that will make them self-sufficient, ultimately hindering collective national sustainable development. However, experts are seeking collective action to create a society where everyone can thrive and contribute to sustainable development. Disability inclusion emphasizes the relationship between the way people function and how they participate in the society. This inclusion also ensures equal opportunities. Inclusion of people with disabilities into economic, social, political and environmental platforms is also the goal for a more sustainable and equitable society. Now, how well are people living with disabilities in Nigeria being included in the societal economic development? What are their current challenges? Stay with us with some answers from our guests shortly.
All right, that was a background report put together for us by Oyeyemi Ajayi. And of course, that brings us to our conversation time. If you're just joining us, thank you. Our conversation is on how we can attain inclusion and of course sustained development for persons living with disability, and the advocacy has come a long way. But let's begin with our introductions. Mohammed Abba Isa is the SSA to the President on Disability, and we're very glad he could join us here today. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and good morning, Nigerians.
And we also have here a very, very strong advocate. There's no way you talk about issues concerning persons living with disability, or whether it's inclusion or anything at all, you will find Dr. Jake Epeli. He's founder, CEO, TAF Africa.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us.
Thank you for your kind introduction.
And I know Jake will argue it is not persons living with disabilities, but persons with disability. I know he often would say that.
You know, she's my very good sister. I will always forgive her.
That has changed over time, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
because it used to be PWD.
Yes.
Yeah. The conventional meaning is PWD, persons with disability. Persons should come first before disability.
Yeah.
Why? Because we are living with our family and friends. We are not living with disability.
So
I'm creating awareness regarding that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Also joining us for this conversation, let me welcome Chief Ayuba Burki Gufwan, Executive Secretary, National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so very much. It's good to be here, and I appreciate your wonderful program.
All right, and finally, but by no means the least, and the only female, really, amongst our guests this morning, let me welcome Mrs. Juanita Chinyere Ashade, retired director with Voice of Nigeria. She's a media consultant, disability and gender rights advocate. She's also a gospel artist and founder, Divine Enablement Initiative for Vulnerable Children and Young Adults, DIVENI. Thank you for finding time to join us.
Thank you very much for the privilege.
Because you must be very busy with all those caps.
Yes, of course. She's a music artist, not restricted to gospel. You know, she does a lot of things, you know, with the voice. So, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Today is your day, and that's why NTA, you know, has dedicated today to speak on the general theme, global theme, which is how to, you know, attain more inclusion for persons with disability and, of course, for sustainable development. But I'll start with Mrs. Juanita Shade and my big sister. We've come a long way. You weren't like this when we met. Tell us your story briefly.
Well, briefly, as they say, life happened. I went for a program outside of Abuja during my vacation, my annual leave, and on the way back at Cotton Karafi, to be precise, the excuse me, the driver lost control. We somersaulted, and that was the last thing I remembered. The next thing I found myself in, there's a hospital at Cotton Karafi. They took care of my legs briefly. We were brought to Abuja, to the hospital in Abuja. Unfortunately, things didn't go the way they ought to. That was at National Hospital anyway. Things didn't go the way they ought to, and the next thing I was rushed elsewhere, where I actually left. I blanked out in National, and by the time I came to at another hospital, Cedar Crest, I found that I didn't have any legs. And that was just it. Deterioration, gangrene setting. And that's how life happened. That was in 2018. The accident happened on the 8th of September, and by October, this has happened, and life has continued thereafter.
So what has been your challenges? What in terms of, you know, sustainable life, what has been your challenges? I mean, it couldn't have been the same anymore.
Oh, most certainly it hasn't been the same. Having to adapt to the new normal. We were talking about new normal under COVID, but this for us, for those that this happens to, I was just given a new phrase today, acquired disability. As having acquired this, it's a new normal. And so you have to adjust. I mean, you think about the expenses are there. I mean, your requirements are different. To get my prosthesis, which I'm still working on, is out of this world. Your accommodation, we had to move out of where we were staying. And God was fortunate. Thank God for His benevolence. He provided a place, and you have to ramp, because where we were staying before just wasn't it. There would have been no means for me to move around in that place, so we had to get somewhere else to stay, which had to be ramped for me to have access. The kitchen facilities, everything has to be put in a way that would be convenient, because I'm a wife, I'm a mother. I still need to do things. I need to cook for my husband. And fortunately, I can, with the way we're able to. Now, that's because fortunately, we were able to, God provided. There are quite a lot of people out there who don't have such privileges, and they're going through life. So that's it. Then in the office too, fortunately, my office was supposed to, when we moved to our new place, I worked with Voice of Nigeria. My office was upstairs, but by the time this had happened, they had to bring my office downstairs. They had to do a little ramp at the back, which is not really right. We're hoping that they will eventually ramp the front. These are part of the things we're talking about, so that I could get into the office. So we're coping. We're getting by one way or the other. You have different reactions from people around you, your colleagues in the office. Some accept you, but again, it depends on your own attitude, on the way you see life, the way you react. So right from when I was still at home recuperating, when people would come around to see me, and some would come in weeping because they knew what I was. And I would say, hey, are you okay? What's wrong? Do I look like there's anything wrong with me? I am not disabled. I am differently abled. So, and that's the way I am.
I know.
All right. And I do know that this is sadly the case for many. Some, maybe a few were born like that. You can say no thanks to polio and the likes of it. But many others also acquired it like you did. And then they have to live with a new reality. But I like the inscription on your top, the power of you.
Yep. Intentional.
I think that would drive a lot of people to, confronting their realities head on and making the most of life. Thank you very much for your opening remarks. Now let me get to Mohammed Abba Issa. I know when we talk about empowering people with disabilities, trying to make life better for them, trying to achieve inclusion for these people, many people look towards government. Many people look towards government. Of course, there's a lot that the private sector can do by way of philanthropy. Some will say, okay, it's corporate social responsibility, that's part of it. But many people look towards government, and rightly so. Now, you are one, and you have the privilege of advising or assisting the president in this regard. What has been the journey so far? How far have we come in trying to achieve this inclusion?
Thank you so much. And once again, congratulations to 35.1 Nigerian persons with disability.
35.1 million?
35.1 million Nigerian persons with disability in this International Day for Persons with Disability, who would normally used to come out with a different team. This team is talking about amplifying the leadership and voice of persons with disability to sustainable future. And it's part of it that this administration, under in line with the determination of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, created my office in order to amplify the leadership of persons with disability in order to close the policy gap. I'm just a presidential aide to him on promoting equal opportunity. And President mandated me, and my role is to liaise and collaborate with ministry, department, agencies of government, National Commission for Persons with Disability, private sector, development partners, organization of persons with disability, to make sure that we close the barrier, to make sure that their policy plan and program is all inclusive. That is the mandate that Mr. President gave me. And since the period under review, my office in collaboration with the National Commission for Persons with Disability are working hand in hand in order to see that we close the policy gap. What is closing the policy gap? If you look at all the MDS, we have what we call Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Provision Act that signed in 2018. Despite the act on ground, despite the Sustainable Development Goal, despite the United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability, which Nigeria are signatory to it. And if you look at President Bola Ahmed Tinubu also signed African Charter of Demand of Human Rights for Persons with Disability in order to align itself with the national treaty. Despite all these indices, persons with disability, they are still facing challenges and discrimination, either systematically in one way or the other. That is the essence of this day. We need to create awareness. We realize that there is lack of awareness in the policy implementation, despite the existing bill. Some of the duty bearers or people opposition in power, they don't know even there is bill, and they don't know the nitty-gritty and disability inclusion. So we need to foster collaboration and invest in creating awareness. So our office recently, we organized interministerial and interagency summit, whereby we invite head of agencies and department and civil society organization in collaboration with the National Commission for Persons with Disability and in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian and Poverty Reduction. Why? Because we realize that all these people, directors and head of agencies, department, they are not aware about the existing or how are they going to relate in disability inclusion. So we invite an expert and service provider, so we have a kind of intensive and strategic collaboration and creating awareness. So this is what we have been doing so far.
Okay, I'm happy that you're here, really, and I don't know why. Maybe Victor didn't want to, hear a bit of your own story as well. I know that the years and your various, I don't think you've had as much challenges as Mrs. Ashade had, but I would love to hear your story. When we started this conversation, we said, you know, many of those, you know, with disabilities were not born with them, and you've heard her story. Just briefly share your story, and I also like the ES to share your story, and you know what you've had to confront before you got to this stage.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I have a success story to share with public. I'm not like that. Disability can happen to anybody. It can happen to accident. It happen to disease, to catastrophe, even age. It can happen to anybody. My own, I involved in a ghastly motor accident on my way from Maiduguri to Abuja to attend a function. And I'm the only survivor in the car. That is why I thank God for my life. The accident is 2006, and also I have to thank the effort of my Yobe State government for taking care of me. Why? Because I realized that if there is life, there is hope. After the accident, I spent 4 years in rehabilitation. My first governor, who is late now, Senator Bukar Abu Ibrahim, may his soul rest in perfect peace. He's the one that first took me to hospital for rehabilitation. After the rehabilitation, the second governor, that is who is now currently the Minister of Police Affairs of Yobe, Senator Ibrahim Gaidam, I really appreciate what he has done to me.
Were you in government service
I'm
then?
in government service.
Then?
Then. I'm in government service. I spent
State
4 years
government
in
or
state
federal?
government.
State
State government, I'm working with it. That's why I appreciate the effort of the state government for taking care of me. What of those that, if it does not happen to you, if you don't have the means of rehabilitation?
What about,
because it's a spinal cord injury.
Yeah,
spinal cord injury is
yeah,
one
exactly.
of the
That's
worst.
what I wanted to ask you. Apart from the treatment you got within the government, you know, circle, what about outside interaction with, you know, other members of the community? How did they relate with you?
Life will change automatically. Why? Because I experienced a double life. I'm working with my 2 legs. And I was undergraduate that time. Then all of a sudden this thing happened to me. You know, life will not be the same again. But one thing you have to have faith. Accept what happened to you in a good faith so that you will not have a kind of depression. Depression is worse than what happened to me. I remember during the treatment, my next neighbor, he has a quadriplegia. His own is paralyzed from head. It is only his eyes that can blink. But my own, I'm using my hand, I have everything. When I visited him to his room, he said, what happened to you? I explained to him. Remember what this man told me? He said that if to say he will get his hand working, he will ask the doctor to discharge him.
Okay, yes.
That is why you have to thank God for everything, and God has a purpose. And one of the emotional things I remember, my mother was late. Before I was in hospital, I'm crying during the accident. Everybody can come. She's like, I'm crying. She said, you should stop crying. God has a purpose for making you. And this is what happened to me now. I'm now #1 as a presidential aide. If I did not have an accident, I would not be where I am now.
Probably
so accept what happened to you in a good way. Persons with disability were people of resilience. Everybody has a success story. But with my position now,
yes,
I have to amplify the voice of persons with disability.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so very much. Well, you know, I was, I think, even though I did not celebrate it, but they said at the age of 6, I was heading toward my 7th birthday when I came down due to paralytic polio. And I was a surviving child. My mom had 2 children who both died at infancy. So when I came in, they were very happy. There was wild jubilation. And all of a sudden, this young boy that was going about, jumping and pushing things everywhere in the house, mothers will know this very well, suddenly came down to the ground, and nobody knew what it was. It was paralytic polio. It is a very was a sad story because I was in the village, no road, no school, no hospital, and nothing. So the earlier belief was that this must be juju. So they went to different seers and all manner of people who would tell stories and stories and stories. But I'm here. Franklin Roosevelt, the former president of America, said that which did not kill you has only made you strong. So everyone out there that has moved into another phase of life, apart from where he was before or she was before, has received an additional strength. Either you receive it or the innate strength has found expression. So it is a very big challenge. Unfortunately, we don't know how many people are living with disability in Nigeria. Conservatively, we say 35 million, 35.1, 35.5, whatever. The worrisome part is that this 35 million is not a declining indices. Rather, it is increasing every day due to accidents, due to age, due to all manner of causes that increase the number. Unfortunately, we are not doing well to make our Nigeria conducive for everybody irrespective of his or her condition. And that is the biggest challenge that we all need to adopt. Government, non-government, individuals. We need to build our homes in such a way. I visit my friends sometimes, and deliberately, by design of the architecture, to come down to the living room, to the parlor, you need to go 4 or 5 steps. It was designed. It wasn't the challenge of the environment, no. It was done, and I told them, but you know that I'm your friend. Why did you create all of these barriers? And they say, oh, Ayuba, we're sorry, we will modify it. And so those are the tasks ahead of us all, Nigerians. It is not to be done out of magnanimity. Oh, no. It is, we need to know, you know,
it's a duty.
Yeah, as a duty. These 35 million people did not drop from the sky. They were given birth to by one mother and one father. So if you multiply mom and dad of 35 million people, you know, you guys, I'm sure she looked like a good mathematician.
Don't go there.
Thank you.
Anyway, so that's a huge number.
Yeah.
It's a huge number in part. Yes, that's a huge number.
Jack represents a sector, if I may say so,
yes,
that sometimes people don't see them the way they see you. Maybe they say, at least this one is complete. And in their own case, well, it's not acquired along the line. It's something they're born with. But I do know that you also have challenges that are peculiar to you, to people like you and people you represent mostly. So what are these challenges for people with albinism?
I think it's interesting. I think sometimes I wish I'm on the other side watching what I'm watching, but it's very interesting. Abba has been my friend forever, and I didn't know much of his story. Yeah, you know, and the ES and everybody. But let me begin by a very interesting question. It was BBC that asked me in 2006. At what point did you know you have albinism? And it just hit me. And I said, oh my God, I had no idea because I wasn't born with a silver spoon. I was born from a very poor family and a bit not illiterate, but they were uneducated, you know. So, and my dad and my mom didn't know. All of a sudden, this white boy came into the family, and so they didn't know what to do, you know. And so one day I went to the stream just like every other person. You know, I wanted to be, I didn't know I was different actually. So I went to the stream and was swimming, and my dad calls me. You know what it is when your father calls you wherever he is. And I ran out of the stream, and I was running to answer the call and ran into a tree and had a big cut. And I began to cry. And he came there and picked me up and said to me, next time, don't run like that. You know your eyes is different. You won't see just like any other person. You know, and it dawned on me. And so I began to ask questions because I'm a very curious, I grew up a very curious child, and I'm still very curious. So why am I different? Why is my skin different? Why is it that I didn't see the tree? And my father said to me, you're different from us, and you have to live with that. And so that is the story of everybody with albinism. What brings us into the community of persons with disability, which we're proud to be part of, is mainly our sight. I'm sitting here. You know how many times I've missed you? You have to introduce yourself.
Yes, in fact, don't go there because I was going to take you up. I listened to you in one of the programs, and I was shocked when you actually told the
Professor Yole, my friend.
Yes.
I can't see your face.
And I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah. No, but we've had that experience a number of times. You have to introduce yourself. And I've known you very long time, longer than everybody here. Yeah, but you keep introducing yourself. Now, it's not our making. It's just that our retina has a condition. I'm trying to choose my words so that it doesn't become a tag. Yes. It has a condition that limits the acuity of our vision. And so, practically, I'm not able to see. It happens to my wife. I'm not able to see objects in its totality. So there's a myopic vision. It does not happen to everyone with albinism. There are some of them. I have one in my office whose vision is slightly better than mine. But as you begin to grow, it deteriorates. My left eyes used to be just about minus 300. Right now it's minus 900 plus. And there is a cataract. And let me use this opportunity to say to my community, persons with albinism, please, if you ever you are diagnosed and you have cataract, do not go for surgery. I would recommend that, except you have an optometrist that says do that. But I wouldn't advise you to, because I went to one of the best vision center in the world in Stanford University, California, and they detected cataract and warned me never, don't do surgery, just live with it. You may not go blind. Oftentimes, when you do, you will go blind. And I'll give you an example. My mother, my late mom, my late mom doesn't have albinism on her skin, but the gene was in her. So her eyes was affected. I took her to three surgeries. She ended up blind. She died a blind person that she ought not to be. And so what brings us into it, because I get accosted all the time. You're not a person with disability. And some people will want to patronize you by saying you're not even a person with albinism, And I said, don't go there. I am a person with albinism, and can I qualify it? A proud person with albinism. I thank God every day for making me one.
Yes.
That's why I'm your DG's friend.
Dick, thank you. And I'm glad we've heard the stories. And not just us here, I know that a lot of people watching this program would relate with, the individual stories here that you've told and all that. Now let us begin to get into the nitty-gritty of our conversation. Yeah. And I'm going to start with you again, and then Victor and I will take it round. Yeah. I know that you've been an active, and I'm using my word, active advocate for improved living conditions for people with disabilities. As far back as the early 1992-93, I know you've been championing that, even when it wasn't, a national issue and all that. The number of people with disability as long as there is life, will keep increasing or growing. But has the environment and the condition in which they live improved for the better? How would you evaluate our progress so far?
Excellent question. Maybe by age, you could say I've been doing this for a long time, but I
Yes.
want to tell you that the people here and several other people who are watching has also been doing a very great job that I'm very proud of. Having said that, there's been a remarkable improvement. I'll tell you what, growing up in the 70s, in the 80s, there are people that you meet in the street that you stretch your hand to shake. Me as a person would, and they will put their hand back in their pocket and say, no, I don't touch people like you. You know, I remember as a young man, I was in school then. I went to a party and the person who invited me, the mother walked into the party and walked me out and said, persons with albinism do not enter their house where he comes from. You know,
I'm sure at the time he wouldn't have even said persons with albinism.
No. He just said people like you, unfortunate European, does not enter my house and all that. You know, so yeah. So that had been the case then for persons with albinism. For persons with disability, of course, the discrimination before 10, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you won't see us on television, national television, you know. So there's been some level of improvement, you know. Before, nobody would talk about getting the RAM like the NTA had this morning, you understand? Nobody talks about sign language interpreter, which, of course, we were waiting for an interpreter that didn't show up. You know, otherwise, what we're saying here would have been signed. So there's been some remarkable improvement, even though there's a lot to be done. But I think it's important to tie it to the theme of this International Disability Day. I was reflecting on it on my way here, and I found out a number of words that made that statement and that can actually further expand on the purpose of whoever came up with that team.
Yes, we will delve into that.
Yes.
Because we're talking about inclusivity and sustainability. Yes, which are key words. You want to take
exactly.
I'll take her because, I mean, for much of her life so far, she's known what it is to just live a normal life, much longer. So 2018, just not 10 years, not 10 years yet. So she's been here and there, and so it's easy to understand. Now, what do you see as, apart from infrastructure, talking about ramps and other things that enable people with disabilities to, you know, at least come close to living a normal life? What have you encountered as some of the biggest challenges that PWDs face?
Well, okay. Which one do I start with now? Okay, let me start with the office. I really appreciate my office. For instance, they got this chair for me before I retired. They ramped the entrance for me, like I said, to get in. But office, high rise, and I was a director, and we're to have board meetings on the second floor. Of course, we have a functional lift, but then, just as life happens, things happen to these gadgets too. So, on the days that the lift is not working, what happens? And I tell them, you have to get 4 hefty guys
to lift you,
to take me up. And they have to do it. They have to take me up the stairs, which it's not comfortable. You're almost tipped upside.
And that's because ab initio, they didn't, in the thinking while constructing the building, did not think about persons with disabilities.
And that is why I'm very happy. We have the Act, but we also recently had the National Accessibility Regulation, which has also come out as an appendage to the Act, which is it's clearly spelled out all these things that need to be put in place in buildings and infrastructure and everything. When you're starting, okay, what's happened has happened, but going forward, anything you're doing, we're talking about inclusion. Whatever design you're designing, whatever plan you are planning, if you don't have people with disability in mind, you've not started.
Juanita, I agree with you, and we will delve into that. But I also, because the question he asked is very fundamental. Your new experience, the new normal.
Yes,
what are those things? Yes. What are the new realities that you are coming to, apart from your office place, to the market, for instance?
That's infrastructure.
I left the best. I left.
Yes.
Let me give you this one. Recently, we were to travel to Lagos. I told my husband, I'm not going. I don't want to go. Why? Because twice that I had to travel, I got to the airport on my chair. Then when it's time to get onto the plane, they bring their own wheelchair. And I'm taken onto the tarmac. I'm first to be put on the plane. But what happens? They jolt me up like a bag of rice. 2 or 3 people, they leave me. The chair can't go into the cabin. On one of the airlines had a good cabin, chair, but the others don't. So once the chair gets to the base of the aircraft, somebody comes behind me, and the next person gets my legs, and they're carrying me up like a bag of rice into the aircraft. And then, even the seats in the airplane, they are not, the armrests, most of them cannot be, they can't. So they have to lift you onto your seats. Most times, okay, so you're there seated, you're the first to get on, and you're the last to get off, because it's after everyone has gone down that they now come again, and 1, 2, 3, boom, and they take you down. And I heard that some time ago there were these lifts that were brought, but they said it was like they were there maybe for some time. That AFAN had them. They were helping people at least to lift them up into the aircraft. But it was just for some months, and they were withdrawn. Perhaps there was a contract that didn't work. I don't know. But that is something. That's why I said the National Accessibility Regulation Act has all these things spelled out. It's a must at the airport. These lifts must be there to take you up in your wheelchair or in the aircraft accessible wheelchair, so that it lifts you up in that chair, puts you into the aircraft, it moves you to your seat.
Have you had the privilege of being able to compare with elsewhere in the world how they do this to make it easier and more humane?
Well, I hear they have the lifts. That's why they brought them here in the first place. They have them in other places.
Sorry, we will expand the conversation. I still want to remain with you.
It's important to mention this because this issue of accessibility, I took it up, and I was a keynote speaker for the Nigerian Institute of Architects in Ibadan just a few days ago. And the institute have come to that decision thanks to architect Mobalaji, who is a good friend of mine, the president of the institute. Now you cannot design anything that the institute will put their stamp on if it's not accessible.
Now this is the inclusion we are talking about.
Yes.
And that's why because once we're about to wind down, we begin to look at the things that need to be done. Whether embedded in the Act or in any other policy document, the gaps that needs to be filled for sustainable development. But I still want to explore more from Mrs. Ashade. And that's because I want to know what the new normal how it has impacted on your emotion. Do you now appreciate those living with various form of, people with disability? Do you now appreciate, the circumstances and conditions that they had to go through? Emotionally, what do you feel for this community of people?
Well, there's no doubt, like they say, who feels it knows it. And having suddenly found myself in this state and in this community, it gives one a better picture of what others are going through. It helps you. The 2 words that I love using, I use them around me from time to time. Empathy. You need to learn to empathize. When people try to react in a funny manner, like he said, some people don't want to shake your hands and all of that, it's because they lack empathy. And it's because they suddenly feel that, well, they are okay. But when you get yourself in one position, one condition or the other, then you now know how to empathize because you're also feeling it. You're also experiencing it. So definitely, I'm in a better position, and that's why I'm where I am, doing all I can in my own little way through the initiative that I was able to start. I communicate with students who are living with, who have this disability. How are you coping in school and all of that? And we talk to their lecturers, and these are things that we need to do to help them. So it's definitely you, when you're there, you're better placed to help others who are going than people on the outside. But then, like I said, the power of you, inclusion begins with you, all of you.
All right. Thank you very much, Anita. Let me get to the ears. You now sit in a position to, play a significant part in making this inclusion that we talk about happen. So, what's the vision?
Thank you so very much. You know, our president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, came on board on this mantra of renewed hope. And it's a huge challenge. If you look at the total, we're talking about a huge number of people. 35 million is more than the population in many countries in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, and all around the world. It's a huge, huge task. And looking at how our nation has been before now, it's not something that will happen at the press of a button. And then, but it's a huge, huge task. And I think Mr. President and all of us that are working under him have this determination to rewrite the story of disability in Nigeria as a whole. I've had the privilege of traveling to some countries of the world, and there's nothing that reminds you that you're a person with disability, because everything works smoothly, normally. You go to the restroom, you want to board the plane, like our mama just said, everywhere is made in such a way that there's no reminder. But ours here is every single moment you are reminded that this is who you are and this is where you should be, which is very wrong. And that's what we are set up to avoid.
I guess that's the difference between developed and developing, because you are getting there.
Yeah. So, for instance, if you look at this enactment that we celebrate, the Discrimination Act, it provides, for instance, that for every employment opportunity that exists, at least 5%. It didn't say 5% is the maximum. No, it said at least 5% of such opportunities should be reserved for persons with disabilities.
Does that include appointments, political appointments, for instance?
Well, of course, I don't think anywhere is precluded. Unfortunately, things have happened in different ways. It includes employment, political employment, yes, and every other thing. Unfortunately, people have come to me. I've just been here for about 3 months, and I've received more than countless petitions about a pastor, for instance, who had, I don't know whether diabetes or something, and he had to undergo amputation. And he said the church have written to him that he should take an early exit. And he didn't feel it was right to retire just because he has lost his limbs. Yeah, he can still do anything. He can do everything as a pastor.
And you preach with your voice.
Yeah, of course, not with your legs. And pastoral work is more than just preaching. There's so much that you can do. So what we are simply saying is that both the private and the public sector need to come to terms with the provisions of this act. When they passed the bill, there was a 5-year grace moratorium kind of a time of just maybe talking at earshot. We need to get this up in 4 years' time, in 3 years' time, in 2 years, and now the 5 years has elapsed. So this is the time for full 100% enforcement of all the provisions of the Act. And as it seems, we're not yet there. In most of the agencies, government and public places, there are institutions that have zero PWD employment in their organizations. Every time I go to a bank, for instance, what I'm looking at is how many people in this bank are people living, persons living with disabilities. And I look around, sometimes I ask, and there's none, zero. So our banks are one of the worst culprits of the discrimination against persons with disabilities. There's a lot of banking work that can be done. I think I can do a lot of work in the bank, sitting on a wheelchair. There's nothing I cannot do. I don't know what is in the bank that you need legs to do. You know, there's a lot that we're going to do, and now is the time. So we just want to get this message out to people that now is the time for 100% compliance with the provisions of this law. Partly, sometimes people think that the world is divided between we and them. Yeah, now that is the biggest error, because there's just a thin line. Sometimes there's even no line. You won't even know when you have crossed over to the other side. So we, the community of persons living with disabilities, used to make the mistake of thinking that the world is divided and we are fighting to get the inclusion. No, these people, able-bodied people, as they would like to call themselves, are really ours, and we are theirs. Because, as I said, 35 million people given birth to by one father, one mother, having 5 brothers, 6 uncles, grandparents, uncles, aunties, and all. So it's an us versus us affair. Everyone in this country is affected by the scourge of disability, one way or the other. And then we look at how are we aging. We look at the wars, look at the accidents, look at everything. I have a doctor friend that we spoke with not too long ago, and he told me that today we increased the number of your community by 7. I said, what happened? That he just coming from the theater, and he did 7 amputations. And even as a doctor, he tells me that it used to depress him every time he comes around and he sees them tying those legs, handing it over to the families for instrumental burial. You know, in my secondary school, I did literature, and we read J.P. Clark's poem, The Casualties. And he talked about the casualties, not only referring to those who had died, he said that they're well out of it. He said they refer to those who were buried by installment. So I was in an accident in Kefi last, and I woke up to discover that my favorite tongue, the one I used to ride and to hold my coffee, and is gone. And I said, wow, so J.P. Clark, the casualties that's happened to me, I've been buried by installment. So my finger is 6 feet beneath the ground, and I'm here talking. Anyway, there's a huge task ahead of us, and we're calling. It's not that it's a few people that are working now. Every Nigerian is called upon to have a new thinking to ensure that Nigeria is accessible and accommodating to everybody.
Wow. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. Yes, you have a lot on your table, not just you. And the SSA, we'll come back to the SSA. Okay, I'm told we have to continue. Just take one more question before we take our call for our break. Usually, when we hear SSA, you know, our imagination is that it's just, you know, papers and all that. Well, for the president to have an SSA on disability matters gives us a picture that there is a vision for people with disability. What is government's perception? What do they see? What do they want to do?
Thank you so much. You know, achieving inclusion requires a kind of multifaceted approach and the government of the day are fully committed in making sure they bring every segment of the society and every segment of the society achieve equal opportunity. That is the essence why Mr. President appointed this office. And if you look at inclusion is everybody business. It has to come with individual like my sister say, government organization, private entity, civil society organization, traditional institution. You cannot achieve inclusion in isolation. Inclusion is not about when you are having a meeting or a function, you will invite persons with disability to. No, we are talking and involve them in the process of right from the designing up to the formulation, up to the process of the implementation. Let the community of persons with disability be on a driver seat. Access plus participation is what will give you an inclusion. Mr. President wants to see inclusion for persons with disability in education, inclusion in political participation, inclusion in airport. Disability issue is a cross-cutting issue.
Inclusion within what context? Let's put the inclusion into context now. Inclusion in terms of job creation. Yes. Inclusion in terms of infrastructure facilities. Inclusion in terms of access. Inclusion in we need to put them into context.
When you say inclusion, you can't separate inclusion from the access. It is when you have access and participation, then you have equal inclusion. For instance, in the case of on the airport, like my Easter scenario, when you go to the airport, for we that were opportunity to travel from outside country, it's different the way how they will board you into plane. They will carry you like a bag, which is a violation of the human right. If you deny somebody having access to participate in a function or to participate like an equal basis with others, automatically you discrimination. When you come inclusion in terms of education, we're talking of access to education to persons with disability. Whatever you are doing in terms of a scholarship, in terms of infrastructure development in a whole, you have to consider persons with disability. What I'm saying, person with disability must talk the lead and must be in a driver's seat, that we have to be an advocate. For instance, when I was in school, whatever they have a lecture, I have to write to them that they should not take a lecture to the theater hall. So you can see the inclusion that we're saying. Despite that, what we're trying to say, in order to achieve the level of the implementation, we need to have a kind of effective collaboration. All hands must be on deck. The government has provided a leveling ground. There is a political will. Like my ES say, now we have Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Act. We have Accessibility Regulation Act is on ground. We have my office from the president, whereby I will be advising the president, where I will be taking some policy, actionable recommendation for him to ascend. And we have organizations of persons with disability that they have similar kind of policy. So we need to come on board in order to come out with a strategic policy for the proper implementation. The post-monetarian age given to all these buildings, it has expired. So we need to impose compliance. How are we going to impose compliance? It's through task force. Ignorance of law is not an excuse. Why? Because our people, they will start going to court. Mr. President is not joking for appointing me. I'm the one that is responsible for the reporting the activities of the donor and organization to the Mr. President for proper solution. So Mr. President wants to see this bill has fully implemented, but the implementation is too slowly. But we thank God if we can compare. If you look at American Disability Act now, it's almost 35 years.
Whose responsibility is it to implement the law? Is it the
It's the responsibility of everybody. That's what I'm telling you. Head of agencies, civil society organization, National Commission for Persons with Disability as a regulatory body, as an institution that's safeguarding the life of persons with disability. My office, I'm an advisory role. Advise Mr. President whatever a document comes to me for a proper implementation. But what we realize is that we have a barrier. That barrier, one, is lack of awareness. Why? Because whenever there is a discrimination, the first excuse that you have from the
But
offenders.
they're not aware.
We are not aware.
We are not aware.
You see, there is missing link. And I want development partners and order everybody to understand that we need to build the capacity of the policy makers, the duty bearers. They are in the existence, they are in the position of a government, for them to understand the nitty-gritty, for them to understand that when you discriminate person with disability, there is a solution, and he will go to court. And for them to understand that whenever you are doing employment, there is 5% minimum. It's not even 5%. It's minimum of 5% must go to the persons with disability.
All right. Abba, let me keep you on hold. We will talk more on all of this, but just after we return from this break. Please stay with us.
When we think about the digital economy, you can see it as the marketplace for digital goods and services. And increasingly, it's becoming a force to reckon with and an incredible contributor to economic growth, because we've seen the growth in technology and digital platforms. Technology has it really permeated every aspect of life and business, the way we live, the way we work. And when we talk about the digital economy, we're really talking about leveraging technology and digital platforms in a powerful way to drive growth, to drive solutions to problems, to drive applications, and to provide services.
The digital economy is something that has the potential to help Nigeria leapfrog a lot of its development challenges, right? Because think about what the mobile phone did for Nigeria years ago. That is the potential we have for digital, because it has a way of reducing the barriers to innovation. It has a way of being able to transform service delivery, whether it's government's delivery of services or whether it's services in the health system, where people can use digital to actually be able to see their patients better. But it takes a lot to realize that potential of digital. The first thing is like every other thing, there's an infrastructure you have to build to be able to make sure that digital economy can thrive. Think of something like, capturing that happens in Nigeria, right? Where you capture, people's biometric when they go for a driver's license, when they go for passports, and each of those are separate things. Imagine a system where you're able to streamline that and actually have a platform that exchange biometric information that makes it easier for people to access passports, easier for people to register to vote. But today it's very tough, right? But those are basic infrastructure that needs to be invested in. A lot of it is through government and private sector collaborations to make it happen.
If we're looking to accelerate growth in the Nigerian space, we really need to look at enabling the digital economy. That includes providing digital infrastructure, connectivity, because that's the highway, like the highway that everything rides on. We need to think about digital capacity building in terms of the suppliers to the economy and also the consumers within the economy. So a robust digital literacy initiative. The good thing about technology is that, one, it helps you to transcend boundaries. Two, it creates a level playing field, really, because if you create a solution, a technology-based solution that is applicable in this environment, that same technology can be applicable, exported to other environments. And, technology platforms also help drive collaboration, right? When we're thinking about innovation, when we're thinking about business growth, collaboration is an important part of that. So when we think about the impacts with the rest of the world, we find that actually technology platforms are giving us an opportunity to engage more actively, to collaborate, to create partnerships, to even export our knowledge and services for people to engage with all the great things I'm talking about technology and digital platforms. They need access, internet access, broadband access. So we need to make sure that access is more available and affordable for the average user.
The most important thing is to think about where you want to go as a country and actually what type of policies are going to help get you there. There are examples of countries who've been able to transform using digital, for example, there are very clear things those countries did to be able to make it happen. So a lot of this, the pathway to be able to solve these problems are not mysterious, right? It takes courage of the policymakers to be able to understudy some of these things and bring in the policies that work to be able to help them.
All right, many thanks for staying with us on this conversation. Of course, we've been talking about how to achieve inclusion for persons with disabilities, and all our guests have been fantastic in talking us through this. But let me get off again with J.K. Pele. We've been talking about, in this final lap of the conversation, what do we need to do, or what are we doing at the moment to ensure that we achieve this inclusion, or at least we enhance it? It's stage by stage. So where are we? If we talk about 5% of jobs, I would say perhaps government should lead by example. Mm-hmm. So is that in view?
Well, it's pertinent to note that, yes, the implementation has been very, very slow. However, there are institutions and some of the government agencies that are taking the bull by the horn. For me, I'm always interested in the structure, because once you establish the structure, implementation becomes very easy. They say strategy is better than energy. And so when it comes to employment, I think the ES here has done the same. I have engaged the head of service, the current head of service, and previous head of service. But the current head of service is taking a very proactive step by establishing a disability inclusion unit. Physically, it's going to be headed by a director. You know, that framework is on. The implementation is on. If there's one thing she wants to do before she leaves, is to see the office in operation.
That's something like, just like we have Servicom?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes, yes. So not just the desk officer. She wants to see a unit in operation, headed by a director, all right? That unit will take care of the issues that has to do with employment within the Federal Civil Service. And she's going ahead by saying that every ministry must have the same unit. Now, whether she's there or not, that office will be in operation. Mm-hmm. This patronizing attitude of employer of saying, oh, okay, we want to be seen as having a person with disability, and they just bring in one person, you understand? You know, that's not what will help us. We need an entrenched system and structure that lives far above the person who is willing to do it.
Yes, I was going to ask how sustainable, you know, that will be, because if a new...
That's the essence of structure. Once you have a structure in place, that structure lives far above the person who established it. So it will be entrenched and it will be sustainable. You know, if you have the right structure and you have the right people who runs it, and they know what the mandate of that structure is, then it becomes very easy to implement it.
All right.
But the bonus is, if they can get person with disability to run that operations, then you know.
Yeah, but you needed to have grown to become a director, for instance. Perhaps Juanita will be in a position. You got to the peak of service. You got to the peak of service, but how achievable and then sustainable is this?
Well, where there's a will, there's a way. If there are people with disability in some of these organizations, they should be given the opportunity to rise. I remember what it was like when I was to go for my, when I had the accident. Someone along the line said, we need to set up a board to find out whether she's able to function on the job. Yes. But fortunately, the head of HR stood and said, look, it's only her legs. And my director general then says, it's just her legs that have gone, nothing else. So, you know, it's a matter of having to fight your way. And once you get there, these things will, and with that, I believe as people are growing, we have even in the commission, we have people there. There are people at that level. Actually, it's just that they're hiding. Some of them are not given the opportunity because, again, as I was saying, we have some people who have been in one office or the other who are because of discrimination, they leave. We know there was a case of somebody who was to be employed in Jos as a nurse who was discriminated against. There's a lady I know, she was in an office with her, she enjoyed going around with her iron, her prosthesis uncovered. She decided not to cover. I mean, she wanted to stand proud. I said, look, this is who I am. I'm not ashamed of who I am. But she was frustrated out of the place. So if people are given the opportunity to stay where they are and get to their maximum, they'll get to that point, and there'll be people there to run with these visions. But people must have the opportunity.
The office and the office of the head of service that you talked about appears to be quite, you know, apt.
Very
but do we all think that it would also maybe require some form of legal backing, giving it a legal legislative backing, you know, so that it becomes really entrenched and sustainable? Because that is what we are saying.
There is a legal backing.
There is a legal backing.
Yes, which is
for
the
office.
Discrimination Act.
Yes, oh, beautiful.
Yeah. There's a legal backing.
There's a legal backing already.
There are policies. As a matter of fact, she's formulating a policy specific for this.
And
beautiful.
Yeah, and that's why it's good to do the groundwork.
What he has said, in order to trigger or to speed the implementation of the act, Mr. President will go to sign executive order in terms of accessibility and that of that person to make it mandatory. Why? Because like issue of the head of service that you mentioned, that unit that she created, nothing about us without us. Let the community of persons with disability be in a driver's seat. So we will work hand in hand. It is now that I've been hearing it, so that we can expand into other MDS to create a similar unit so that they will appoint persons with disability to be in charge of that thing. Why? Because if that is the way how we are amplifying the leadership of persons with disability, upgrade them to be in a that's he who wears should know where it is. If it is person with disability to occupy, it's not about the unit. If you bring somebody that does not understand the civil service or the need of persons with disability in the civil service, it will be going to be a different. Why? Because a person on wheelchair, like my sister said, that it is only her leg. She can walk. Why? Her eyes, she's seeing, she's not blind, and she has two hands that she can use computer. But there is some amputee. What of those that are amputee? So we need to understand the need, basic need of the person with disability in that. And it is only DEX that if it is person with disability, we are engaged in that. I can remember even last couple of months, my office will even create awareness in regard to that so that we can have a kind of DEX in all these MDS regarding to person with disability. Why? Because there is person with disability who can say, we are not talking of only 5% when they are doing the employment. No, even the auditing. We have to audit the total number of their employment. Okay. If it is 1,000, that 1,000, are they 5%, minimum of 5% in that employment? So that this is where how we can identify the level of the gap or the number of persons with disability in specific agency, so that to know whether they have filled that gap or they didn't fill that gap, so that we will know how to move forward. I think a
lot of you have talked.
Look, first, the head of service made sure I was brought on board. I represent persons with disability. I recommended that the commission be contacted. I recommended the office be contacted. So we need to all work collaboratively so that we can establish it, you know, and ensure, yes, I agree, a qualified person with disability can run the unit. That's not a problem. But every hands should be on deck. And whoever gets this job done, it doesn't matter. Let the job be done.
All right. Now, that's one part. That's one part. We've talked a lot about enforcement. You know, we seem to begin to use force. But I say you've also admitted that the first thing people will tell you is, look, I wasn't aware. And I ask, how much advocacy has gone into all of this? Yes, do you think we have done enough in terms of advocacy? Reaching out to the ordinary Nigerian, reaching out to those who have the means to support, and reaching out even within government circle. Have we done enough?
Well, we can never say we've done enough. We need to do much more. We need to do much more because, as I said, if we see this as a collective responsibility, then we don't need a lot of advocacy before we realize that we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. I was confronted with a story that broke my heart. A young lady walked into my office and said, "Sir, I lost my leg at a tender age, and my mommy used to tell me that all you need to do is commit yourself, take your studies very serious, and once you go to school, your problems will be over." And true to, she went through school. I made a first class, and she participated in an online interview. So they didn't know who they were hiring. And so because of her performance, they hired her. And then when they served them appointment letters, so she showed up at this office for documentation. Her first major shock was that the office was on a 3-story building with zero accessibility provisions. So somebody came down, she filled her form, she did everything. And then the following morning she reported to work, but her office was 3 stories up there and she couldn't go. So there was nothing, and the organization didn't say, okay, can we make a makeshift office or some form of accommodating? And it turned out that they said no, because you can't get up there. We are sorry to say that we will have to terminate your appointment. You understand? Due to no fault of us. In
so
Nigeria,
what has the commission done about that?
Well, of course, we're picking up. Our legal unit is pushing through, and we will definitely seek redress, not just for that girl, but for people like her all over the country. There are, for one case that comes to your attention, there could be thousands out there that is lying unnoticed. So that is one issue that we're definitely taking up, and we're just sounding this so that other Nigerians will know that you have. You can imagine how that lady will be feeling now. Yeah, mommy said, just go to school. Once you go to school, your problems will be over. I know in this day and age where you need to know somebody before something can happen to you. Like someone said, that who you know is more stronger, is more powerful than what you know. But she knew something and she performed excellently well in this online interview, and she got the job. Now because of barriers that were made by a man, she had lost
and
the
that's
job.
why I'm asking, how robust is your advocacy mechanism?
Certainly, that is what we're doing. We're strategizing, and our advocacy will definitely be up there. And as I said, part of the approach that we're doing is to recruit every single Nigerian into our advocacy team.
Okay, I want to. Sorry. You will do that, Jake. You will do that, Jake. I just want to ask, because when we are talking about people with disability, we've been talking about the educated, the privileged, the well-to-do. There are a number of people with disability that are roaming the street, begging for
out of
alms.
school.
Yes. How is this conversation embracing them for inclusive purposes?
Okay, so I think I'd like to begin by saying that we're talking about advocacy. Advocacy requires platform. An institution like NTA has given, look at how the amount of time that you have given us this morning. This is where it starts. Other institutions, whether private or public, should give us the same space, just like you have given us this morning. You didn't ask any of us to pay a dime. You were busy calling all of us, making sure that we're here. That's where it starts. I also want to say that we, persons with disability, has a responsibility. We have a responsibility, sometimes like Abba said, report issues, because Nobody is a spirit. So we wouldn't know what is happening to you. I'll give you one example. There's a young man with albinism who went to police college, was the best, came out, and like ES said, sent in his credentials for him to be accredited and all that. Went to, and I'm going to be specific, went to Police Service Commission. That's a long time, all right? And the moment the then permanent secretary saw him, he said, "Ah, no, we can't give you this. We didn't know you have albinism." And the person said, "I've been going through, went to police college and all that, and you're telling me." So he came to me, and we took it up. We went up to Senate committee meeting until the police commission was, then it was my very good uncle, Michael Okiro. Yeah, they were summoned, and we had a meeting. And the police brought a medical doctor who is a police. And he came to say, "Oh, well, you know, he can't see that." I asked him a simple question. That's why knowledge is power. I said, "Sir, what's your specialization?" He said, "I'm a general practitioner." I said, "So you don't know. You don't know the opportunities that this man can offer to the organization. He's a veterinary doctor,
Yes.
you know, so he can look after the dogs. He doesn't need to go in the field and all that." Anyway, we won the case, and today he's Assistant Commissioner of Police in Lagos, and one of the best and the brightest that police has offered. So the point is, one, the people needs to report. Two, there has to be advocates who are not just talking but working, being able to go through, patiently take them through and get result. Just like ES is do what he's doing, and ABBA.
Yes.
You
So
know,
how do they report?
How do they report?
Just a
Yeah.
minute.
Well,
Let's quickly cover the other people.
Create the opportunity for that report.
Jake, let's know how you intend to cover those people that are not within this, you know, I mean, this category of people with disabilities that are here at this moment. There are people outside there, you know.
Take for instance some of the things that, and I'm sure the commission and everybody had done. Okay, so we took the Disability Act and broke it into 3 languages, and because information is power. But at the same time, there are outreaches, like in political participation that we've been championing. We take the campaign, we bring people like INEC face to face with these people who are not educated, and they are properly educated.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Let me say how do people report if they have to report so that it reaches you and you can act?
In an addendum to what he said in regard to the creating awareness, I think we have a platform for, you cannot do advocacy without a strategic advocacy without having a kind of platform. We have an existing platform. Organization of Persons with Disability, we have Joint National Association of Persons with Disability, which is an umbrella body for all persons with disability. They have their structure in the national, state, zonal, up to the world level. And there is National Commission for Persons with Disability on ground. And there is Office of the SSA on the Special Lead and Equal Opportunity. And if you go to the National Assembly, we have Chairman House Committee of Persons with Disability. You can see how we have a kind of platform. I think Section 2 or Section 32 of the Act is talking of creating awareness. And Federal Ministry of Information, they are responsible. Clearly stated.
You know, you can have all of these things without maximally utilizing them.
Let me come. They are responsible in creating awareness through NOAA in collaboration with the Organization of Persons with Disability. In my office, we have a hotline in reporting, but we cannot just see something in social media without a reporting. We have a reporting mechanism. National Commission for Persons with Disability, they have a director of enforcement and compliance, and they have a legal director. They have everything, and they have their hotline is 24 hours often. It's another reporting mechanism. But what I'm trying to say in a nutshell, that creating awareness in order to achieve disability inclusion require a kind of multifaceted approach. It's a collective responsibility.
All right, Abba, we've run out of time completely. Yes, 30 seconds if you can. 30 seconds.
Anyway, as I was saying, now, you know, to administer 35 million people in just one office in Abuja is practically impossible. So as a commission, we're opening 6 zonal offices in the 6 geopolitical zones, and we're going to have offices in all the 36 states, including the FCT, and the over 774 local governments will have liaison offices in all of them. So that we will draw the government closer to the people. Then we can have a bottom-up approach. Thank you.
All right, let me start the appreciation from you, Chief Ayuba Burke Gufwan. That's the Executive Secretary of the National Commission for Persons with Disability. Thank you very much. I really don't envy you. The job you have is it's quite challenging, but I know they are not they are surmountable. It's surmountable. And let me also appreciate Mohammed Abba Isa, the SSA to the President on Disability Matters. Thank you also.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And Jake Pele, founder, CEO, TAF Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks to your DG and the team in
Good Morning Nigeria
NTA.
team. Thank you. Mrs. Juanita Chinyana Shade, retired director, Voice of Nigeria, and a media consultant, disability and gender rights advocate, and music artist, and founder, Divine Enablement Initiative for Vulnerable Children and Young Adults, Divan. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigeria.
All right, that's Good Morning Nigeria this Thursday. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. I am Victor, so we'll see you again tomorrow.
All right, I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. Enjoy the rest of today. Bye-bye.